Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome back from Thanksgiving. Hope everyone's doing all right. Hope everyone's not still tired from watching all that football and eating all that good food. I know this Thanksgiving might be a little different for some of us because we couldn't visit our big families like we used to. But I'm glad we have each other, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for you. I really am. And today we're going to learn about the French and how they came to America too. We travel in time back again to time around Jamestown colony. Even before that, when the when the Spanish were exploring America. The French kind of started around the same time. But then we're going to learn about the French, and then we're going to talk about the French and Indian War, and that's really the big topic. The French and Indian War happened before the American Revolution. Believe it or not, more people died and fought in the French and Indian War than the American Revolution. And we're going to spend more time in the American Revolution. That's weird, right? Well, we consider that the birth of our nation, but this was still a big war, and it kept us English. If the English colonies had lost that war, right now we would be probably speaking French. So it's a pretty big deal that way. And if you want to look at it that way. All right, so I'm going to read to you chapter 6, and then you're going to have an assignment to do and a video to watch the rest of the week for every day. All right? Just like we did before. All right, here we go. The French come to America. Many English people came to America for freedom of religion. Many poor people came to America to earn money. We learned that many Spanish people came to America to find gold. People from France also came to America. People from France are all called the French. King Louis of France wanted to find a shortcut to Asia. In 1534, the king sent Jacques Cartier to America. Cartier wanted to find a river in America that he could follow west all the way to Asia. Cartier sailed to Canada. He could not find a river that went to Asia. He explored the St. Lawrence River. You can look at the map on page 33 if you'd like. Find the St. Lawrence River. Cartier said that all the land around the St. Lawrence River belonged to France. French land in America was now called New France. Wonder what the Native Americans thought of that. Well. Sieur de La Salle also explored America for France. In 1682, La Salle traveled from the St. Lawrence River to the Mississippi River. Then he paddled the canoe down the Mississippi River to the south. In the south, there is a body of water called the Gulf of Mexico. La Salle was the first person we know of who traveled all the way down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. Many Native Americans may have done that, but we don't have any record of that. Sieur de La Salle called the land near the Mississippi River Louisiana. You put a big cross and a French flag on the land of Louisiana. La Salle said that Louisiana belonged to King Louis of France. The land around the Mississippi River and the land around the St. Lawrence River were part of New France. The French started 2 cities on the Mississippi River. These 2 French cities were St. Louis, we call it St. Louis, and New Orleans. We generally just say New Orleans. New Orleans was near the Gulf of Mexico. Some French people moved to America. They came for 2 reasons. One reason was to get furs. Native Americans hunted animals for their furs. The French traded with the Native Americans for these furs. In France, they sold these furs for a lot of money. The second reason the French came was to teach Native Americans how to be Catholics. Oh, more religion again. Forced religion stinks in God's nostrils. There we go. If you remember who said that. The French owned much more land in America than the English owned, but there were many more English settlers than French settlers. Few French people wanted to live in America. The French did not allow freedom of religion. Only Catholics could live in New France. So the French colony grew very slowly. And this is interesting because being tough and, trying to do it your way doesn't work all the time. A lot of the French, and we call them Huguenots, who were Protestants, they came and lived in English America. Paul Revere was descended from French Huguenots. So we got a lot more people in America because of the freedom, where France was closing their doors to Protestants because the English opened them to Catholics and Protestants. They grew stronger. And hopefully that's one way to grow stronger, to include everyone. Native Americans helped the French in many ways. They taught the French how to trap animals for furs. They taught the French how to use canoes to travel on rivers. They also showed the French how to make snowshoes. Many parts of New France had lots of snow in the winter. When the French wore snowshoes, they could walk on very deep snow. Native Americans had fewer fights with the French than with the Spanish or the English. The Spanish had forced Native Americans to work as slaves. The French never treated them as slaves. The English took land away from the Native Americans in order to build farms and towns. The French did not take Native American lands. While that is true, especially in most of New France, I would argue that New Orleans did just that. So I would watch the never. I would say usually. And also the Native American populations seem to have been made slaves in the New Orleans area as well, intermixed with the African Americans. Okay, now we're going to learn how English and the French kind of fight. And the American colonies obviously side with England, because that's their mother country, and so we're going to see what happened here. England did not want France to own land in America. Many English people in the 13 colonies wanted to move west to Louisiana. French did not want English people to live in Louisiana. England and France had been enemies in Europe for many years. They became enemies in America. By 1754, England and France were fighting a war in America. This war was called the French and Indian War. By other cultures, it's called the 7 Years' War. It's kind of lame it's called the French and Indian War. It's only called that because the English won it. Some Native Americans fought for the French, and some fought for the English. The ones who fought for the English were mostly Iroquois, who were not treated well by the French. They were attacked by the French the Iroquois were attacked by the French because they were helping out another tribe. So when it says they never, did bad things to Native Americans, that's not true. And the Iroquois remembered that 100 years later and sided with the English. George Washington lived in the Virginia colony. He helped the English soldiers fight. And that's true. He almost actually started the war, believe it or not. He attacked a French envoy that was there for a peace mission, and he thought they were an enemy, and it started the war. So George Washington, even as a young man, just making history. Kind of weird that way. The French and English also fought in Europe. In 1756, they began fighting in Europe. England won this war in 1763. England also won the French and Indian War. This war ended in 1763. After the war, England owned Canada. England owned all the land that was east of the Mississippi River. Spain owned the land that was west of the Mississippi River. St. Louis and New Orleans belonged to Spain. France lost most of its land in America. They got to keep 2 tiny islands for fishing. Oh, there it is. France kept 2 small islands in Canada. That's why. In 1763, England and Spain owned most of the land in North America. Okay, so there you go. That's I know it's just a tidbit on the French and Indian War, but we're going to focus more on the American Revolution. But that was a very bloody, very terrible war. Similar to King Philip's. It was very barbaric. All right. We'll see you. Au revoir.